The emergency beacon pulsed steadily, a lonely rhythm echoing through the cold, empty vacuum of space. Its quantum signal, sharp and unwavering, rippled outward from the mining colony of Asteria 7, like a scream in the void, desperate and urgent. Each pulse carried a simple message: we are under attack. We need help. There was no fanfare, no flare. Just a continuous beat that grew quieter as it moved further into the black unknown, hoping that someone, anyone, was listening. Inside the colony's command center, Governor Kira stood still. Her translucent crystalline skin, standard among the Vidian species, shifted with subtle pulses of light, each pattern betraying her inner turmoil. The holographic display in front of her showed a grim sight. The stars above Asteria 7 were beginning to disappear, swallowed up one by the arrival of the Nexus swarm. The biomechanical ships, dark and chitinous, moved like insects with purpose, blanketing the sky and blocking out even the meager light that reached this remote sector. "Status report," Kira said sharply. Her voice, a series of harmonic tones that shimmered like music, was instantly converted to galactic standard by her translator. Commander Vix, her chief of security, responded immediately, projecting a tactical overlay onto the main holoscreen. 3 Hive ships confirmed, Governor. Current estimates indicate over 2,000 support drones. Our shield matrix is holding at 60% capacity, but the swarm's acid-based weaponry is adapting. They're matching our shield frequency modulations faster than we anticipated. Kira's form dimmed slightly, a Vidian biological reaction indicating dread. She had seen the reports, read the eyewitness accounts from other systems that had encountered the swarm. No one had survived. Ever. Entire colonies had gone dark, their populations reduced to rumors and classified footnotes. Those who faced the swarm didn't fight. They didn't resist. They were simply erased. The Vidian Confederation had always considered itself a pinnacle of technological achievement. Their crystalline biology allowed direct interfacing with their systems. No buttons, no tools, just thought and response. They had created wonders, built cities of glass that shimmered with ambient intelligence, and ships that moved like flowing art. But the swarm was different. It didn't care for elegance. It didn't negotiate. It simply consumed. "The nearest Confederation fleet?" she asked, though she knew the answer. She had calculated it herself. 4 days away at maximum jump velocity, Vix confirmed, his tone carrying the weight of hopelessness. "We've already begun evacuating the civilian sectors, but there are too many. We can't save everyone." Asteria 7 wasn't a military base. It was a mining colony, an industrial node designed for extracting rare crystalline ore from beneath the planet's crust. Over 50,000 inhabitants called it home. Engineers, miners, technicians, families. The colony's defensive perimeter had been built to deter pirates and meteoroid threats, not a full-scale assault from a nightmare. "How many can we evacuate before they breach the shields?" Kira asked. "Maybe 10%, Vix said grimly. "Best case scenario." The command center fell into tense silence. The hum of machinery and soft pulse of lights did little to ease the weight in the room. Kira's eyes, complex faceted organs of light and crystal, surveyed the room. Her officers were doing everything they could, but it wasn't enough. She could feel it in their patterns. The swarm wasn't just coming, it was already here. Suddenly, a junior communications officer snapped to attention. Her crystalline form pulsed in a pattern of disbelief and something else. Hope. "Governor!" she called out, her harmonic voice rising. "We're receiving a response to our distress call." Kira turned. "From the Confederation." The officer hesitated. "No, ma'am, it's human." That drew immediate murmurs across the command center. Humans. That couldn't be right. The Terrans were newcomers to galactic society, barely a century into faster-than-light travel. Their ships were considered sluggish, their technology crude by Confederation standards. Curious, yes. Courageous, perhaps. But capable of repelling a full swarm invasion, laughable. "Display the message," Kira ordered. The holoscreen flickered, and text appeared in plain galactic standard. "Hold tight. Human warship en route. ETA 18 minutes. More murmurs, this time louder. Even Vix's crystalline form flickered in disbelief. A single ship, someone muttered. They must be mad. 18 minutes. It felt like both an eternity and no time at all. The swarm was drawing closer. The drone vessels were already beginning their formation cycles, tightening like a noose around the colony. Kira's mind ran through simulations, recalculating escape projections, reassigning defense grids, reauthorizing emergency power redirection. None of it would be enough. And yet, against all logic, the humans were coming. 17 minutes passed, then 16, and then the void opened. The UES Defiant dropped out of quantum space with a silent ripple, emerging like a leviathan from the deep. Its hull was a matte black, not polished or decorative like Vidian ships. It didn't shine, it devoured light. There were no sweeping curves, no aesthetic flourishes. It was a blade. Every angle had a purpose. It was, unmistakably, a war machine. On its bridge sat Captain Sarah Chen, calm and focused. She was in her 40s by human years, seasoned, tested. Her short, dark hair framed a face marked by subtle scars and a 1,000-yard stare. She wasn't here to posture. She was here to fight. "Status report," she said, her voice calm and commanding. 3 hive ships, over 2,000 drones. Asteria's shields at 48% and falling. Civilian evac underway. No confirmed casualties. Yet, said Commander Rivera, her executive officer. Chen nodded slowly. Time to see what Defiant can do. The ship wasn't standard issue. It was a prototype, an experimental class vessel built around a bleeding-edge quantum drive and a neural AI system called Area. While other species interfaced with machines through direct biological integration or controlled automation, humanity had taken a different route, merged machine learning with human intuition. Instead of command lines, they used thought. Instead of automation, they shared cognition. "Initialize Area," Chen ordered. Across the bridge, neural interface nodes activated. Thin filaments of light connected crew to ship, not with wires, but with data and emotion. The AI, Aria, welcomed them, adapting instantly to their states of mind. Together, they became something more, something faster. "This is Captain Chen of the UES Defiant," she broadcast across local space. "We are engaging the enemy. Continue your evacuation. We'll buy you time." Back on Asteria 7, Kira heard the message, her translator rendering the words with steady clarity. She hesitated. "Captain, with respect," she began. "One vessel is all you'll need," Chen said, cutting her off. A thin smile touched her lips. "Weapons. Target the nearest hive ship. Let's show them how humans fight." Outside, the void lit up. The Defiant's main weapon, a hypervelocity rail cannon powered by entangled quantum particles, fired its first salvo. The projectile struck the hive ship's chitinous hull like a sledgehammer through wet paper. The impact didn't just blast through armor. It destabilized the molecular structure from within. The hive ship buckled, fractured, and began to dissolve. The drones stuttered. Their neural network faltered, their cohesion weakened. The swarm wasn't used to this, but they learned quickly. Within seconds, their acidic weaponry adapted, changing frequency, evolving countermeasures. The Defiant's shields began to drop as the swarm adjusted to its defenses. "They're adapting," Rivera warned. "Faster than projected. Shields at 70%. Chen didn't flinch. "Good, let them. Adaptation is their strength. Improvisation is ours." And with that, she gave her next command, one that would change the battle entirely. "Execute pattern Delta 7. The ship lurched. In the colony's command center, Kira watched the human vessel move with impossible grace. It phased in and out of space, flickering between positions, existing in multiple states. It attacked from angles that shouldn't be possible, hitting drones before they realized where the shots came from. "Impossible," she whispered. "They're using quantum probability as a maneuvering protocol," Vix murmured, awe in his voice. "The ship is phasing between potential realities." The Defiant danced through the stars like a shadow of war, unpredictable and lethal. Every time the swarm adapted to a tactic, the humans switched to another. Kinetic weapons became electromagnetic pulses. EMPs became gravitational distortions. The swarm couldn't catch up. They weren't just being beaten, they were being outthought. But even Chen knew this was only the beginning. The swarm was vast, and Defiant couldn't be everywhere at once. She needed more than just cutting-edge weapons. She needed something else, something human. And that moment, the realization that pure firepower wouldn't win the day, marked the turning point of the battle. It was when creativity, not strength, would become humanity's greatest weapon. The Defiant moved like no ship the galaxy had ever seen. Where most vessels obeyed the rules of inertia and gravity like loyal servants, the human warship treated them as vague suggestions. With each flicker of its matte black hull, it shifted unpredictably, disappearing from one location and reappearing yards away, trailing ghostly afterimages across the battlefield. The galaxy's most technologically advanced species had built their ships for elegance and function, but the Defiant had been built for one thing only: war. Captain Sarah Chen sat centered in her neural interface chair, body upright, eyes narrowed, brain fully integrated with Aria, her ship's artificial intelligence. Unlike traditional ships, the Defiant didn't just obey orders, it anticipated them. The Aria system responded to human thought patterns in real time, translating tactical instinct into action faster than any command sequence or data script. It was the culmination of decades of experimental fusion between machine learning and human intuition. "Status," she said, though she already knew. "Hive Ship 1 is breaking apart," Commander Rivera reported, his neural link glowing faintly with synchronized data feed. "But Hive 2 and 3 are adjusting. They've changed formation. Looks like they're distributing control among themselves, trying to limit their vulnerability." Typical swarm behavior. Chen had read every tactical file available. The swarm didn't retreat. It evolved. Their strength was in numbers and rapid adaptation, not overwhelming force. They didn't need superior weapons. They just needed enough time to mutate, to learn the enemy's rhythm. And once they did, they crushed it like clockwork. But humans didn't fight in rhythms. They fought in chaos. "Shield status," Chen asked. "Down to 61%. They're cycling acid-based weapon frequencies. We're having trouble keeping them from breaching the outer barrier." "Good," Chen said again, and her crew didn't even blink this time. She liked it when the enemy thought they had the advantage. That's when they started making assumptions, and assumptions were fatal when dealing with humans. She sat back in her command chair, eyes scanning the tactical display in front of her, then into her mind's overlay. "Aria, prepare for pattern Delta 9. Maximum propulsion deviation, non-linear jump intervals, and begin predictive counter-adaptation modeling." "Pattern Delta 9 confirmed," Aria's voice chimed, calm and eerily human. "Recommend neural bandwidth buffering. Cognitive stress may exceed tolerable range." "I'm aware," Chen said flatly. "Engage." Around her, her crew shifted in their chairs, bracing themselves as their minds merged deeper into the ship's core systems. Aria accepted them one by one, syncing thought, instinct, and tactical models into one seamless combat entity. For a brief moment, Sarah Chen wasn't just commanding the Defiant. She was the Defiant. "Target Hive 2, she said. "Execute pattern." The ship didn't lurch, it didn't roar. Instead, it seemed to melt into a different position, blinking across the combat field like a shadow skipping between dimensions. The swarm's drone vessels, thousands of them, struggled to track its movements. Each time they launched projectiles, they struck where the ship had been, not where it was. Chen didn't simply dodge, she anticipated. Using quantum state modeling and probability overlays, Aria allowed her to predict where enemy projectiles would most likely land, and place the ship in a slightly different probability to avoid them altogether. The ship existed in a blur of potential outcomes, only choosing a fixed position at the moment of attack. From the bridge of the Defiant, each crew member felt their bodies buzzing with adrenaline and raw data input. Traditional piloting had long since become obsolete. Now, it was about instincts sharpened by countless simulations, and daring to go further than any logical officer would. "Enemy adapting," Rivera said, even as their tactical displays began to flicker. "Swarm drones now emitting secondary quantum pulses. They're trying to localize our phase states. They're fast learners," Chen murmured. "Aria, prepare to shift modulation frequencies. Let's give them something to chew on." Back on the surface of Asteria 7, Governor Kira and her officers were frozen in disbelief. The command center's tactical holodisplay was struggling to keep up, distorting in places as if the system itself couldn't comprehend what it was seeing. "That can't be right," Kira whispered. "That ship is phasing between probable locations." "It's impossible," Commander Vix muttered, his crystalline form flickering in confusion. "No ship can move like that. There's no propulsion trail, no gravitic footprint. They're sidestepping space itself." They had watched as Hive 1 disintegrated. Now Hive 2 was under assault, its shield envelope rippling as hyper-accelerated rounds struck it at impossible angles. From a military standpoint, the humans were committing acts that bordered on myth. "They're not just using technology," Kira said softly. "They're rewriting it." Back in the Defiance bridge, Chen's hands moved quickly, though most of her inputs were thought-based. The neural interface surged with energy. Arya flooded her mind with rapid simulations, threats, counters, weak points. The ship's hull glowed faintly as the probability engines kicked into overdrive. The bridge crew spoke in clipped phrases now, military shorthand, nearly indistinguishable from machine code. "Enemy drones grouping. Rebuilding control structure," Rivera noted. "They'll try to outnumber and overwhelm," Chen said. "They always do." She smiled thinly. "Let's remind them how we play." Humanity had always faced larger, better-equipped enemies. From Earth's earliest tribal conflicts to the wars of the 22nd century, humans had rarely been the dominant force in a straight fight, so they had stopped fighting fair. "Initiate phase disruptor net," she ordered. Immediately, the ship's external emitters deployed a sequence of electromagnetic pulses, varying in polarity, frequency, and rhythm. It wasn't meant to destroy, it was meant to confuse. Swarm drones, designed to adapt through pattern recognition, were thrown into chaos. Their targeting software twitched, their formations stuttered, and the Defiance struck. Volley after volley of kinetic slugs hammered the Hive ship. Each projectile was enhanced with quantum destabilizers, small packets of entangled matter that caused cascading failure in organic tissue and synthetic plating alike. The Hive ship began to crack. But as expected, the swarm began changing again. Their acid projectiles turned black, then green, then began to pulse with sub-quantum energy. Their shields rippled with new waveforms. They were becoming resistant, even to this. "Enemy adapting again," Rivera said. "They're starting to stabilize. They're learning our patterns," Chen muttered, biting the inside of her cheek. "Arya, initiate heuristic counter-randomization. Begin Monte Carlo vector shifting." "Confirmed," Arya said smoothly. "Generating chaotic vectors." And just like that, the Defiance pattern became nonsense. To the swarm, it was as if the human ship had gone insane, moving in wild, mathematically incoherent trajectories. No predictive model could lock on. And that was the point. The Defiant became an agent of chaos. Instead of consistent patterns, it operated on principles of deliberate statistical volatility. Each movement, each shot, each response was guided not by logic, but by probability trees rooted in human impulsiveness. It was exactly what the swarm wasn't prepared for. Hive 2 reeled. Its defensive grid collapsed. Its drones, suddenly cut off from coordination, began to fire in conflicting directions. Friendly fire incidents increased. Some even crashed into one another. "We're pushing them into entropy," Rivera said, staring at the readouts. "It's working." Chen didn't celebrate. Not yet. Her fingers tightened on her armrests. "They'll compensate," she said. "They always do. We need to hit Hive 3 before they catch up." Just then, the colony's signal crackled through. Governor Kira's voice came over the comms, more steady this time. "Captain Chen," she said, "we've begun full-scale evacuation. Your actions have bought us time, more than we ever expected." "Understood," Chen replied. "Don't stop the evac. This isn't over." A pause. "Captain," Kira continued, "I've served on the front lines. I've seen battles across 10 systems. I've never witnessed tactics like this. This ship, your people, what are you?" Chen looked out at the chaos through the forward viewport. Swarm ships burned. Fractured drones floated aimlessly. The hive mind, so reliant on control, was fraying at the edges. "We're human," she said quietly. "We don't follow the rules. We write our own." The bridge lights dimmed as power diverted into weapons and maneuvering systems. Arya's voice returned. "Captain, Hive 3 has entered attack range. New configuration variant unknown." "Doesn't matter," Chen replied. "We'll adapt." That was the real secret. Technology alone wasn't what made humans dangerous. It wasn't their weapons or speed. It was the mindset, the ability to pivot, to change, to invent on the fly. No simulation could predict it. No evolutionary algorithm could fully match it. It was madness. It was genius. It was survival distilled into strategy. And now, humanity had a ship that could keep up with its ambition. The Defiant turned. Its engines flared white-hot, bending physics just enough to make the math scream. Ahead, Hive 3 loomed, its chitinous form undamaged, its drones reorganizing. But Chen was already calculating, already plotting a new move. They had made their entrance. Now it was time to break the galaxy's expectations entirely. The Defiant moved like a ghost through the chaos, slipping between clouds of hostile drones and arcs of bioplasma fire. Its matte black hull, scarred but unyielding, shimmered faintly with the residual glow of its quantum displacement drive. Hive 2 was gone, shattered under a barrage of physics-defying maneuvers and unpredictable human tactics. But Hive 3 was adapting, and fast. Back on the bridge, Captain Sarah Chen's jaw was tight, eyes scanning the stream of tactical overlays feeding directly into her neural interface. She wasn't blinking much anymore. Arya, the ship's AI, was running at full synchronization, distributing cognitive loads across the crew to reduce neural fatigue. Still, it was taking a toll. Her head pounded with the intensity of command, but she didn't slow down. "Status," she said. "Enemy has reconfigured weapon systems," Commander Rivera reported. "Their acid payloads are now laced with quantum reactive particles. They're mirroring our last jump pattern, trying to phase track us." Chen didn't hesitate. "Initiate evasive protocol Alpha Zeta, full spectrum noise injection. Scramble our phase echoes." "On it." Across the bridge, crew members worked in silence, their faces lit by cold blue light from holographic readouts. They were synchronized beyond words, moving together like a single organism. The Defiant wasn't just a ship, it was a living idea. A testament to everything that made humanity dangerous in war. Bold, unorthodox, brilliant. The swarm had never encountered anything like it. Quantum displacement threshold nearing instability, Arya warned, her voice clipped. Sustained phase shifting is no longer advisable. Drive core integrity at 67% and falling. Chen inhaled slowly. They'd been pushing the drive harder than any simulation ever allowed. Traditional engineers would have already pulled the plug, but Chen wasn't a traditionalist. "We're not done," she said. "Plot me a route through the densest cluster of drones." Rivera raised an eyebrow but obeyed. "Ma'am, their drones are closing in on the colony's outer shield perimeter," he added. "If they breach, we won't be able to protect the evac ships." Chen's eyes darkened. "Then we buy them more time." The tactical overlay shifted. Dozens of red indicators swarmed toward the colony. The mining platforms of Asteria 7 were vulnerable, barely shielded. Civilian transports were launching in waves, but they were slow. Too slow. Kira's voice came through the comms again, her tone strained. "Captain Chen, our outer perimeter is collapsing. If you have any further capabilities, now is the time." Chen stared at the display for a heartbeat, then another. "Lieutenant Kumar," she said, opening a channel to engineering. "Do you remember the theoretical maneuver we discussed? The one that would void every safety protocol in the known galaxy?" There was a pause. Then a voice came through, tinged with both dread and excitement. "You mean the maneuver that uses the quantum drive as a localized reality disruption field?" "That's the one." "You said it would probably kill everyone on board." "I did," Chen confirmed. "But I've changed my mind." Even Rivera looked shocked now. "Captain, that wasn't designed to be used in combat. It was a lab model." "We don't need perfection," Chen replied calmly. "We need chaos." There was a short silence. Then Kumar's voice returned. "Engineering is ready, Captain. But if we push the drive that hard, it could collapse space-time in our immediate zone. Chen's lips barely moved. That's the plan. She turned to Rivera. Sound general quarters. All hands brace for pattern Omega. Rivera hesitated, then nodded. Pattern Omega. Confirmed. Lights across the Defiant turned red. Gravity plates shifted slightly as energy began to reroute to the forward reactor chamber. The ship trembled, just enough to let everyone know what was about to happen wasn't routine. Chen sat back and closed her eyes, letting Arya thread the command sequences directly into her consciousness. Arya, she said softly. Begin reality phase modulation. Convert displacement calculations into active distortion parameters. Create a probability bleed field, widespread. Field calibration in progress, Arya responded. Initiating spatial uncertainty in 5, 4, 3. From the outside, nothing happened. Then everything did. The space surrounding the Defiant shimmered like heat waves over asphalt. The black void twisted, not with color or sound, but with a profound wrongness. Every sensor on the battlefield went haywire. Drones began spinning in place, their neural links glitched, their attack formations fractured. What the Defiant had done was something no other species had even attempted. They had taken a quantum drive, built for propulsion, and used it to generate a field of localized reality instability. Within the sphere, probability itself ceased to be reliable. Some drones found themselves duplicated, fighting their own mirrors. Others exploded from spontaneous matter annihilation, the result of occupying mutually exclusive spatial positions. Still others simply vanished, cancelled out by the collapse of their quantum waveform. In the command center of Asteria 7, Governor Kira and Commander Vix stared in open awe. Kira stopped herself. That can't be real. They're using the quantum drive as a weapon, Vix said, his pattern strobing in confusion. Not a beam, not a missile, just pure randomness. It's not randomness, Kira whispered. It's unpredictability. That's what they are. Back on the bridge of the Defiant, warning lights flashed across every panel. Quantum field stability down to 52%, Arya warned. Containment failure imminent in 4 minutes. Chen's mind was sharp, focused. She was seeing data faster than any unlinked brain could process. We don't need 4 minutes, she said. We need 90 seconds. She opened a direct channel to her entire crew. Listen up, she said. This next move is why we're here. The swarm doesn't understand creativity. They adapt, they adjust, but they never imagine. We're going to show them what imagination in war looks like. She turned back to Rivera. Ready the kinetic railgun. Target coordinates inside the probability field. Fire on my mark. Aye. The swarm, true to form, began adapting. Drones withdrew, falling into a more conservative pattern. Hive 3 extended its control net, trying to regulate chaos. Some drone ships changed form mid-flight, their organic components mutating to deflect quantum interference. But it was too late. Chen gave the signal. The Defiant's main gun roared, firing physical slugs at near-light speeds into a space where the laws of physics were actively conflicted. The result was devastating. The swarm's attempts to adjust to the field had ironically made them more vulnerable to conventional weapons. Their molecules, softened and hyper-adapted for fluid reality, couldn't hold up under brute force. Entire drone clusters disintegrated. Hive 3's outer plating began to crack. They're panicking, Rivera said. I think we're pushing them past their adaptation limit. Let's keep the pressure on. But Chen knew the quantum drive wouldn't hold. Kumar, she called down to engineering. We're about to lose the field. Begin containment purge and shut down sequence. Understood, Captain. The Defiant lurched as the field collapsed. Reality snapped back into place like a stretched rubber band, sending a shockwave across the battlefield. The ship groaned under the strain, hull plating creaking, but they were still flying. Drive holding at 8%. Reboot required. We're on conventional systems now, Kumar reported. Chen nodded. That's fine. We don't need it anymore. She looked at the display. Hive 3 was regrouping. Barely. Its coordination matrix was degraded. Drones were malfunctioning. Its organic systems were overclocked from trying to process the distortions. But Chen wasn't done yet. "Governor Kira," she called over comms. "Do you have access to your industrial fabricators?" There was a long pause. "We do, but they're used for processing ore. What do you—" "We're about to make history," Chen said. "Get me access. We're going to build weapons they've never seen before. Weapons they'll never expect." The command center of Asteria 7 was tense with disbelief as Governor Kira watched the tactical feed. What she had just witnessed shouldn't have been possible. The Defiant had destabilized space itself, creating a quantum uncertainty field so chaotic that even the swarm, beings designed for rapid adaptation, had faltered. The colony's defense grid, though still flickering under pressure, was holding longer than anyone had dared hope. But the swarm wasn't finished. Hive 3 was damaged, but far from defeated. Drones were regrouping. New formations were emerging from the disintegrating wreckage of Hive 2. The organic matter in their frames shifted shape as if molded by invisible hands, their systems constantly rewriting themselves to match the strange new physics they'd just been exposed to. And then came the message. "This is Captain Chen." The voice rang clear through the command center's speakers. "Governor Kira, I need immediate access to your colony's industrial fabricators." Kira hesitated, momentarily confused. "Our fabricators. They're designed to process crystalline ore, Captain. Refining, shaping, molecular separation. Nothing military." Chen didn't miss a beat. "Perfect. That's exactly what I need." In the background of the Defiance bridge, Commander Rivera was staring at the tactical display with the same expression of incredulity that had been etched on his face since this battle began. He looked at Chen, then at the data flashing through his neural HUD. "You're not actually serious," he said. Chen was already walking toward the front of the bridge, her neural link disengaging temporarily from the main chair interface. "Dead serious. If we're going to keep them off the colony, we need something unconventional. The quantum field gave us a window, but they're adapting. We need to hit them with something they can't evolve around." Rivera followed her, arms folded, skeptical. "Mining equipment isn't a weapon, Captain." "That's the point," Chen replied with a smile. "They're not expecting it. The swarm learns patterns, predictable military logic. It adapts to plasma, kinetics, radiation, and even quantum manipulation. But what if we throw something at them they don't even recognize as a threat?" She stopped in front of the bridge's auxiliary console and pulled up the colony's fabrication specs. The Vidian fabricators use crystalline processing tech that operates at molecular resolution. With a few adjustments, I can turn that precision into a resonance-based weapons platform. Rivera blinked. "Resonance like harmonic disruption." Chen nodded. "Exactly. We build thousands of crystalline microstructures tuned to a specific frequency. Use their own crystalline ore against them. When those structures are vibrated at the right pitch using our field generators, they'll disrupt molecular cohesion and biomechanical systems. You're planning to break their ships apart using sound." "Not sound," she corrected. "Harmonic frequency propagation. Think of it like using tuning forks to crack glass, only on a starship scale." Rivera took a slow breath. "That's insane." Chen smiled again. "Then it just might work." Minutes later, the Defiant docked at the colony's main fabrication array, an enormous dome nestled beside a rocky cliffside, its surface glowing faintly with crystalline veins. The facility, once used to mold ore into delicate support beams and energy conduits, was now buzzing with frantic activity as the colonists scrambled to reroute its protocols for something completely outside its design specs. Chen stood at the main control platform, her neural link connected directly to the system interface. Governor Kira watched from behind, still stunned. "We've never repurposed the facility like this," Kira said cautiously, "and certainly not for combat applications." Chen held up one of the prototypes, a smooth crystal sphere no larger than her fist. Its surface shimmered with a faint, almost liquid glow. "We're combining your crystalline tech with a mining method humans used centuries ago," she said. "It's called fracking. We used to fracture bedrock by injecting it with high-pressure energy and chemicals." Kira looked alarmed. "This isn't dangerous to the colony, is it?" Only to them, Chen assured her. Each of these spheres is tuned to a specific frequency range. By flooding the battlefield with them and triggering a coordinated resonance pulse, we'll create a harmonic web, one that their biomechanical structures won't be able to withstand. And if they adapt to the resonance, Chen's eyes twinkled, then we show them Phase 2. It took under an hour to mass-produce the first 10,000 spheres. Fabrication protocols were pushed to the brink as the facility operated at triple capacity. Colonists, some trained engineers, others just brave volunteers, worked side by side with the Defiance crew, recalibrating emitters, testing signal integrity, double-checking resonance values. In orbit, Hive 3's forces were consolidating. The drones that had survived the probability field were now reinforced by newly formed variants. They were smarter, faster, more efficient. The swarm was reacting, pushing its next evolutionary stage into combat-ready forms. Chen didn't wait. "Begin deployment," she ordered. Cargo bays on the Defiant opened. The launch system, normally used for deploying mining payloads, ejected clouds of shimmering spheres into the space between the swarm and the colony. From a distance, they looked like glittering debris, harmless, slow-moving, unremarkable. That illusion was deliberate. On the colony's tactical screen, Governor Kira watched the display light up with thousands of tiny pings. "They're moving straight through the field," she observed. "Not even slowing down." Chen's voice came through again. "Good. Let them." Sure enough, the drones dove through the cloud of crystals, their biomechanical scanners dismissing the objects as irrelevant. A few even bumped into them or pushed them aside with no reaction. The swarm didn't recognize the spheres as a threat. That was their mistake. Chen stood on the Defiance bridge, her gaze steady. "Phase 2, she ordered. "Resonance pulse on my mark." "Ready," Rivera confirmed. Across the field, the spheres began to glow. Each one responded to a synchronized signal from the Defiant, amplifying and redirecting a focused harmonic frequency, one precisely tuned to interfere with the swarm's molecular integrity. "Mark." The pulse went out. There was no sound in the vacuum of space, but the results were unmistakable. The moment the signal hit, the spheres began to vibrate, rapidly, violently. The resonance field formed a complex three-dimensional web. Drones caught in the net began to shudder, then crack, then explode. The harmonic waves passed through their hulls like an invisible knife, destabilizing joints, shattering internal structures. Organic and synthetic matter tore itself apart under molecular stress. Even Hive 3 visibly staggered as the resonance began to affect its outer shell. Governor Kira stared at the readout, stunned. You turned mining technology into a battlefield-scale molecular disruption system," she whispered, "with tuning crystals." On the Defiant, Chen's face remained calm, even as her crew erupted into excited calls. Direct hits across multiple drone clusters. Enemy adapting. Minor waveform shifts detected. Efficiency at 63% and falling. "They're already adjusting," Rivera warned. "I know," Chen said. "That's why we have Phase 3. Even as the swarm modified their shielding to deflect the resonance waves, the crystals changed again. Each sphere had been designed with a final contingency, a failsafe built into their molecular structure. "Begin cascade detonation sequence," Chen ordered. This time, the spheres didn't just vibrate, they exploded, not with conventional force, but with quantum-tuned microbursts. Each detonation produced a temporary pocket of altered physics, localized gravity inversions, molecular phase destabilization, and spatial ripple zones. The swarm never saw it coming. They had adapted to energy weapons. They had adapted to quantum disruption. But they hadn't adapted to chaos. Especially not the kind that rewrote the fundamental rules of engagement. Drones collided with invisible gravity wells. Others fired weapons that looped back and struck their own ships due to warped space. Some vessels simply unraveled, unable to maintain cohesion in the face of cascading physics failures. Back on Asteria 7, Kira's command center filled with stunned silence. "You've broken the battlefield," Vix whispered. "Not broken," Kira corrected softly. "Rewritten." On the Defiant, Chen stood in silence for a moment, watching as Hive 3 reeled under the assault. The swarm's drones were scattering. Their central control matrix flickered. Communication between units slowed. The very structure of their command chain was collapsing. "They rely on understanding systems," she said aloud. "On adaptation through pattern. But there's no adapting to madness." Rivera looked at her. "Captain, I think we just made our point." Chen nodded. "Let's make it louder." They didn't use another weapon. They didn't need to. The swarm, desperate to reassert control, tried to regroup. But their adaptations, once their greatest strength, had become a weakness. In modifying their internal structures to withstand resonance and quantum chaos, they had exposed themselves to old-fashioned kinetic strikes. Chen ordered a final barrage. Pure, raw, solid tungsten slugs. No enhancements, no high-tech frills, just brute force. Hive 3 collapsed. Its massive body, now riddled with fractures and destabilized by earlier feedback, came apart in pieces. The last surviving drones, severed from central command, drifted helplessly through space. On the bridge, no one cheered. They were too tired, too focused, too aware that the fight, while won for now, was only part of something larger. But they had proven something. Humanity didn't win through strength alone. They won through the unexpected. The battlefield above Asteria 7 had descended into silence. An eerie, unstable calm stretched across the void. Hive 3 had fractured under the weight of human improvisation and audacity. But the war wasn't over. The swarm, in its truest and most terrifying form, was only now revealing its final card. Back aboard the UES Defiant, Captain Sarah Chen stood motionless at the front of the bridge, her neural interface humming faintly in her skull. Her body ached. Her mind was drained. But she didn't waver. She couldn't. Not now. She stared at the tactical display. What remained of the swarm's forces had gathered around Hive 3's heart, an organ-shaped core of biomechanical mass that had restructured itself in real time. It was no longer a ship in the conventional sense. It had become something else, a pulsating, crystalline spider of impossible geometry and living tissue. Tendrils of glowing energy flickered along its limbs, warping light and bending space like a black hole. "Captain," Commander Rivera said quietly, "we're picking up energy readings unlike anything we've seen. It's rewriting its own physics model. Aria's predictive systems can't keep up." Chen exhaled. "What's it doing?" Rivera glanced at the scrolling streams of quantum fluctuation data on his display. "If I had to guess, adapting to the probability fields we used earlier, but not just resisting them, mimicking them." Chen's jaw clenched. The swarm had seen what humans could do with unorthodox application of technology, and now it was returning the favor. The monstrous hive began to pulse on all frequencies. Its voice was not mechanical or organic, it was both. Twisted, layered, and encoded in forms most species couldn't process. But the Defiance translation systems fought through the distortion. "Your species is incompatible, unpredictable, disordered, but not immune. You will be corrected." Then the hive opened fire. It didn't launch missiles or beams in the traditional sense. Instead, it released streams of quantum-laced energy that ignored normal causality. Where they hit, space itself unraveled. Segments of the asteroid belt simply ceased to exist. Ships turned to vapor. Small, distant moons distorted like wax under a torch. The first wave struck the Defiant's shields, and the ship shuddered violently. "Impact registered. Layers 3 through 6 are gone," shouted Lieutenant Ayres from engineering. "Whatever that was, it didn't impact. It deleted." "Containment," Chen barked. "Failing," Rivera growled. "Core quantum matrices destabilizing. If it hits us again with full force, we won't survive." Chen's eyes narrowed. She turned to Aria. "Status of the quantum drive." "Barely holding," the AI responded. "Crystalline lattice integrity is compromised. One more major push and it will collapse." "Noted." She opened a channel to Governor Kira. "We need access to your antimatter containment systems. All of them." The silence that followed was immediate and tense. "You want what?" Kira's voice wavered. "Captain, that containment is for deep core operations. Industrial grade. It's not built to be tampered with. A failure would destroy half the colony." I'm counting on it, Chen replied calmly. Even Rivera turned to stare at her now. You're not serious. She was already moving toward the tactical console, recalibrating the ship's trajectory. The hive adapted to everything we threw at it. Our probability fields, our resonance waves. It even learned to fight in our style. So now, we stop fighting on its terms. You're proposing a suicide run, Rivera said flatly. I'm proposing we do what humans have always done when we're outmatched and outgunned, she said. We change the terrain. A moment of silence passed. Then Rivera stepped up beside her. You know I'm with you. But how the hell do we survive something like that? We don't, she said. Not in one piece. The bridge crew blinked in disbelief. Chen continued. We plunge the Defiant into the mining shaft. We line it with de-shielded antimatter containers and collapse the shaft behind us. At the moment of impact, we detonate the quantum drive while the antimatter's containment fails. The resulting cascade won't be a normal explosion. It'll create a localized inversion field. Localized what? Rivera asked, half laughing, half panicking. A zone where physics eats itself, Chen replied. Gravity, time, particle integrity, gone. Just a hole in the rules. You've completely lost it, Ayers said over comms from engineering. Chen smiled. You've been flying with me for 5 years, Lieutenant. You knew I was crazy from the beginning. Copy that. Starting drive reconfiguration for Omega Black Protocol. She turned back to the screen. The hive was approaching fast now. Its limbs dragged through space, bending matter as they passed. Behind it, the remnants of the swarm closed ranks. The window was closing. Governor, Chen called. Drop the containment fields when I say. All of them. If you hesitate, that thing kills us all. There was a long pause. Then, understood, Captain. The Defiance retro thrusters fired. The entire ship shifted orientation, angling toward the jagged mouth of Asteria 7's main mining shaft, an immense tunnel carved straight into the planet's crust, kilometers deep. Designed for ore transport and atmospheric venting, it was never meant to be a launch corridor. Now, it was a cannon. Chen locked her eyes on the entry point. Rivera, you get one shot. We thread the needle, or we die trying. Copy that. The swarm surged forward. The hive unleashed another wave of reality-breaking energy. It carved a path through space, closing on the Defiant like a scythe. Chen gave the order. Fire maneuvering thrusters. Full burn. Dive into the shaft. The Defiant plunged into the black. Its hull scraped the sides of the shaft as crystalline shards rained down around it. Sparks flew. Alarms blared. The G-forces threatened to tear the ship apart, but Chen held steady. Behind them, the hive followed. It barely fit, grinding against the walls with a shriek of tearing geometry. Its limbs folded inward, rearranging, adapting again. But it was too late. Inside the shaft, the Defiant systems began to spike. Antimatter containment reached, Arya confirmed, awaiting release. Now, Chen said. Governor, drop the fields. On the surface, Kira gave the order. Dozens of containment barriers failed simultaneously. The shaft flooded with unshielded antimatter, dispersing into the narrow confines like ink in water. Drive charge at critical, Kumar reported. Containment is failing. We're going to lose structural cohesion in seconds. Chen gave one last command. Do it. The Defiance quantum drive detonated. It didn't explode in the traditional sense. It collapsed. In the shaft, time lost direction. Space folded in on itself. Light bent backward. For a moment that felt like forever, the universe forgot its own rules. The hive, caught in the epicenter, tried to adapt again. But there was nothing to adapt to. There were no laws left. The swarm's greatest weapon, its ability to rewrite itself to survive anything, became its undoing. In a space where physics was broken, its existence unraveled. Bits of it stretched, duplicated, vanished. Some parts merged with others in impossible geometries. Others simply ceased to be. Then the mining shaft collapsed. Chunks of rock and plasma fell inward, sealing the wound in space-time. Silence. A moment later, the Defiant emerged from the other end, barely more than a wreck. Its outer hull was scorched and splintered. Smoke poured from ruptured vents. The drive core was gone, burned out from the suicidal surge. Emergency lights flickered across the bridge. Fires burned in electrical bays, but they were alive. On the bridge, Chen lay slumped in her chair, blood on her temple, but breathing. Rivera staggered to his feet, coughing. "Captain, I'm here," she murmured. "Status, we're alive," he said. Somehow. From the colony, cheers erupted over comms. Vidian systems picked up the fading echoes of the anomaly. Then silence. The hive was gone. The swarm, scattered and leaderless, drifted without purpose. Kira's voice came through. "You did it," she said, awestruck. "You broke reality to save us." Chen smiled faintly, her voice ragged. "Sometimes the best weapon is desperation with imagination." 1 week after the Battle of Asteria 7, the Vidian High Council chambers were filled with representatives from 12 spacefaring civilizations. Some shimmered with crystalline light. Others pulsed with neural energy or hovered on tendrils of molecular cohesion. The chamber, ancient and domed with prismatic glass, had seen countless political debates, but none quite like this. At the center of the room stood Captain Sarah Chen, freshly returned from what should have been a suicide mission. Her dress uniform was crisp, though one sleeve concealed an emergency medical wrap from injuries sustained during the antimatter-induced collapse. She stood tall, quiet, letting the playback unfold on the central holographic display for all to see. The footage was raw. The Defiance dive into the shaft, the release of unshielded antimatter, the detonation of the quantum drive, the collapse of physics. And then, the impossible, the UES Defiant emerging, battered but intact, while the hive ship was erased from existence. As the final moments played, the chamber was utterly silent. Even species that communicated only in electromagnetic pulses or chemical bursts were still. Then, the first speaker of the Vidian Council, Lazora, rose. Her crystalline body pulsed in muted blues and greens, colors of contemplation among her kind. "For centuries," she began, "we have viewed humanity as technologically adolescent, bold, reckless, inventive, yes, but far from refined. Our military doctrine warned against sharing advanced systems with species that lacked discipline or structure. And yet," she turned to Chen, "and yet your actions have reshaped our understanding of war." Chen said nothing. A representative from the Quantum Collective, a species of sentient plasma-based beings, hovered forward. Its form rippled with analytical flashes. "You deliberately destabilized your own propulsion system to create a region of unreality. You destroyed your primary asset in a tactic that violates 17 protocols of galactic combat doctrine. And you survived." Chen raised an eyebrow. "Barely." The room rippled with a blend of amusement and unease. Another voice, a biomechanical delegate from the Arcturian Order, leaned in. "You turned mining tools into a strategic weapons platform, designed an improvised resonance grid, and weaponized chaos as a battlefield condition. These are not the actions of a primitive species." "No," Chen said, speaking now for the first time. "They're the actions of a species that has spent its entire history learning to survive impossible odds." She looked up and swept her eyes across the gathered leaders. "We may not have the most advanced tech, but when our backs are against the wall, we adapt. And more than that, we imagine." Lazora tilted her crystalline head. "Some among us are concerned. Your refusal to abide by conventional tactics, your willingness to risk planetary catastrophe, your use of civilian infrastructure as offensive assets." Chen didn't blink. "You're right to be concerned, because that's who we are. When survival is on the line, we don't follow rules, we redefine them. When you see unusable, we see repurposable. When you see a dead end, we build another path." She stepped forward. "The swarm couldn't adapt to that, and that's why we're still here." There was silence again. Then Lazora turned to the assembly. "The Vidian Confederation proposes a formal alliance with Earth. We offer our technology in exchange for shared combat intelligence and adaptive strategy." The chamber rippled with surprise. The Vidians, proud and notoriously secretive, were opening their vaults, because they'd seen something in humans they hadn't seen in eons' originality. Chen allowed herself the smallest of smiles. I think we can work with that. 3 days later, back aboard the Defiant, now under emergency repair at a dry dock above Asteria 7. Chen stood overlooking the industrial deck where dozens of Vidian engineers now worked alongside her crew. They were reverse engineering their own technology under human guidance, blending structure with unpredictability. Rivera walked up beside her, a datapad in hand. The Alliance paperwork's moving faster than expected, he said. Everyone wants a piece of us now. Chen chuckled. Give it a week. They'll start telling us we're reckless again. He looked at her. Are we? She thought about it for a moment. We're not reckless. We're unreasonable, she said. And sometimes that's exactly what survival demands. Rivera leaned on the railing beside her. Still can't believe we lived through that. Me neither, she admitted. I thought we were going to die. So why do it? She turned to him. Because no one else could. They stood in silence for a while, watching the joint teams below. Sparks flew from welding torches. Panels were replaced. Systems redesigned. It was the beginning of something new. Then Chen spoke again. You ever wonder why we survive things we're not supposed to survive? Rivera raised a brow. All the time. She gestured to the repair crews. It's because we never stop asking, what if? Even when everything says we can't, we do anyway. Not because we're fearless, but because we're too damn stubborn to quit. Rivera smiled. You think that's what sets us apart? No, she said. I think that's what saves us. Epilogue Reflections from Earth Command. Back on Earth, reports of the Battle of Asteria 7 echoed through military and civilian channels alike. The name Captain Sarah Chen became a case study in every war college. Tactical think tanks scrambled to understand the quantum cascade maneuver. Even peaceful civilizations studied the resonance grid with awe. But more importantly, something else happened. People started seeing humans differently, not just as warriors, but as wildcards, as the species that didn't win by being the most powerful, but by being the most unpredictable. In the years to come, alliances were formed, doctrines rewritten, and fleets rebuilt, not to replicate human technology, but to incorporate human thinking. Real-world lesson. The power of innovation in crisis. The story of Asteria. 7 may be science fiction, but its core reflects something deeply human and very real. Time and again, throughout history, humanity has faced challenges that defied logic or conventional wisdom. Whether it was sending men to the moon with computing power weaker than a modern phone, surviving world wars through relentless resilience, or building life-saving vaccines in months instead of decades, we have always found a way. But we never found it by following the rules. We found it by asking, what if? By questioning assumptions. By breaking old models and creating new ones. Captain Chen's story is a fictional representation of that mindset. When outmatched, she didn't try to match strength for strength. She used creativity, improvisation. She used the impossible. And that's what we must remember. Whether in science, technology, medicine, or conflict, survival and progress often demand more than strength. They demand imagination. And more often than not, it's not the resources we have that save us. It's the way we use them. So next time you're faced with something that feels insurmountable, whether personal, professional, or global, remember this. You don't have to play by the rules. You just have to be human. And that is more than enough.